Yeah, I think it's pre-snap and post-snap too. So pre-snap, we always start, look at the front, then the linebacker level, then look at the DBs, right? So you start low to high, you kind of think of it that way. And it's the same way post-snap, right? So now you've got your indicators, you got the things you're looking for on certain plays. So say it's a, play to the flat or whatever. Now I'm looking at the flat defender. Okay, what's he do? Now I know where my second guy is. So really those kind of things, and it's a process every play. And I think it's just kind of a, don't get distracted by something else that's out there. And he does a good job for the most part. And then there's a couple plays as a young guy, you kind of start seeing something else and you maybe move on too quick or those kind of things. And that's kind of where just stick with your progression, keep your eyes and feet in kind of the same spot. The way it was supposed to go, guy gets knocked off a route and then all of a sudden now his eyes go somewhere else and maybe that gets it off schedule. So there's a story to every play, I would say. But there's, against that defense, that was something we wanted to do. And I think there's a few he missed, and then there's a few he hit, and it was just kind of getting that consistency is what he's searching for.
From a philosophy standpoint, when you guys are staying on schedule with the run game, which you did better to start this game than previously, are you wanting him to maybe not push the ball downfield as much as he seems inclined to want to?
No. I think it's just each play is kind of designed. Sometimes those play action shots do get you some, we were running the ball pretty well and had a chance for some play action shots, and those ones do have a chance to go down the field. And then those ones, if they all run out and play coverage, you just got to kind of play each play as they, we're not going to totally predict each defense that we're going to get. So see the looks you're going to get, know what we want against, check the ball down. A little bit of both. I think we got more big people personally. We're in 13, we're in 12 a little more. So that helped kind of get his snaps up as well, him and Chiggs. So getting them both on the field at the same time was a good change-up for us. And then the ball kind of always naturally finds Gunner, too. He's such a easy catcher, and he's, really reliable route runner. So it's hopefully we can really kind of keep growing with him. But I think his target share may keep going up, and he's every time the ball goes to him, for the most part, something good seems to happen. You always need to throw the fastball, you know what I mean? And then there's other times where it's got to be fit in a tight window, and you got to make that catch. I think the good thing about our group is those guys, every receiver, when it touches their hands, they're going, I got to catch it, I got to drop it. And he's going, I can take a little off it and, help you out there. So there's an accountability to it, which is nice. It's not going, they're not coming back to the huddle and saying, hey, you got to throw it softer or anything like that. But there are some times where he's got a live arm and you do have to take a little off it and give a guy a chance. And, especially some of the ones down the field, the deeper balls, we put a little arc under it and let the guy make a play for it too. So it's a balance for him with his arm talent. I think the accuracy and the touch, as long as his feet are in rhythm, it normally works out okay for him.
For Kevin.
I didn't, I guess you'd have to ask him about his mindset. You know what I mean? I can't, he practiced Friday, he practiced really well. And I thought I think sometimes maybe you feel better than others. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to speculate. But we've never lost any confidence in Calvin or anything like that. He's always kind of been our guy, and I think some of the things kind of just didn't break his way. And I think having last season where we kind of went through some things too, in the beginning of the season, and now you get to go through it again, and all of a sudden he goes for, 150 and has all these yards and has all these big plays in the game. And I think there's probably a confidence with him knowing he's gone through it here, and same thing with us going through it with him. So I think that's where kind of cohesion and us all being through it and knowing each other, and we know he's always going to go out there and make plays for us.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And I think I've been around him long enough that, people have talked about, flipping field position and a great game, and it kind of felt like what he does. So maybe I don't take it for granted, but sometimes that's just what he does. And I'm very proud of him. He's really in tune with the bread and butter, and then having some situational punting. But he did have a big impact in the game as far as, the one where Baker downed it, inside the 5-yard line or so. He had some real good balls, just feeding the gunner, trying to match up hang time, distance, and direction to about the time the gunner would show up to either have a shot at the tackler or force a fair catch. But he's really locked in, and I put more on his plate than maybe most punters because he has such good football IQ, whether it's checking a punt or killing a fake or whatever it might be. He's got a real good sense. There's a lot of trust given to him out there on the field. Leave him alone. I've always left the kickers alone. Yeah, I'll peek down there and I'll see him kicking in the net. I have my assistant, Coach Stewart. He kind of lingers down closer to the net just in case anything happens where we kick a field goal, maybe in a unsuspecting time. He's just there to just alert him that this might be happening. But yeah, I don't talk to the kickers. The only time I talk to the kicker is after a kick or before a kickoff. Other than that, I don't have too much.
Did he make the
influence.
same mistake on the PAT?
Same mistake
The
as the
plank
week before. This was a little bit different. You could probably see he took a big chunk of grass out. If you look at a golf analogy, he just hit it fat, and it just hit the ground so far behind the ball, his foot opened up, and it just it was a bad miss. But it was different than the previous week.
Any concern mounting?
No, I'm actually proud of him for bouncing back. 3 big field goals, and of course his first game winner, I believe, of his career. So. Yeah, no, good stuff. No concerns about Joey's performance.
Kentucky.
Very nice, very good eye for return. So we've talked with him, and Chim has kind of an instinct for it too. There's a certain tempo I think you want to run the kickoff return with, and we worked with Cavante Turpin in Dallas a lot, where based on the call, the distance and direction of the kick, you kind of vary your tempo a little bit. So as the kickoff return, as we're learning the new kickoff return, there's a certain tempo you got to run with to let the return develop. Because if you just catch it, you just go 100 miles an hour, you might get there before it's developed. And so I think Chim is really learning through experience the tempo to run it with, where you catch it and you get started at 80%, you build to 90%, and then once you see a seam, then you got to go 100. But you don't want to go 100 and then it gets shut down and now you're down to 50 because your feet stopped and there was no hole there. So it's a really good evaluation by you, but there's definitely a tempo that you want to run the kickoff return with. And it varies, again, based on what the call is, the direction of the kick, and the distance of the kick. Deeper kick, you might have to get going a little faster to get up in there. A little shorter kick, you tempo it a little bit to let it develop. If I catch it directionally further away from where I got to go, I might have to get going. But if I catch the direction of the kick closer to the return direction, then I got to maybe slow it down. So there's a lot of cool pieces to it, but there is definitely, at least for us in our return game, there's an element of tempo to how you want to run it. So I'm very glad you asked that. So a couple things is the defensive linemen, first of all, are getting bigger and longer. But I think more than that, I think that's something we need to look at from a special teams perspective, and I probably shouldn't say it right here, but every field goal versus field goal block is a 6-on-4, and there's nothing you can really do about it on field goal protection. You got a guard, tackle, end, and wing on field goal protection on one side, but the field goal block team is allowed to go 6 to a side. So every field goal versus field goal block, you got a 6-on-4, which means you got 2-on-1s. So field goal protection is very hard. If you have real good rushers on the field goal block side, and there are schemes to field goal blocking, you might not look like it, but there are. So you combine a good personnel unit with a good schematic unit, it's very hard to protect on field goal protection. The kickers, we got to get the ball off in under 1.3 seconds, and by the time the ball is crossing the line of scrimmage, it has to be about 11 feet high. So all those things, it looks like, hey, snap, hold, kick, boom, got it, PAT, no problem, moving on. Every time I'm on field goal protection, I'm like, oh, come on, boys. Calais Campbell's in the C gap, and it's a 28-yard or whatever it was for a game winner, It might feel like it's a foregone conclusion, but it's not. So I think those are 2 big reasons for a lot of field goal blocks this year is the defensive line getting bigger and longer, and then 6-on-4 every time. But it's been like that for a long time also. So why this year? I don't know if I have another good reason for that. Why it's more this year? It does definitely feel like there's more field goal blocks than there have been in the past.
How was Winston?
Yeah, good call. It was really cool to have him out there. We celebrated him in the meet room on Monday, just the fact that less than 12 months later, he played in his first NFL game. He hasn't practiced a lot, so to get him out there, he played all 4 phases. He took, I think, like 23 snaps in the game for us on special teams. He's got really good football wisdom. He's very inquisitive during the week. He's very quiet, but you can tell he's one of those kids that just studies his teammates while he's been out. And then his movement skills and his physical willingness in the game on special teams really showed up, because you don't really know until a guy goes out there and how he does. But watching the tape, you know, he played strong, he played confident, he played physical. He was very valuable to us because we needed him in the game. And I look forward to seeing his career go from likely, you know, special teams, all 4 phases, into whatever his defensive role is going to become. But it'll be something someday. So we'll take him while we got him.